First of all, if you could just tell me a little bit, when did you discover your interest in blockchain journalism? Why did you decide to do your thesis on civil?
So first of all, I had a class during my master's in which we discussed a lot of different technologies, for example, blockchain. And during this class, it was 3 years ago already, I was not convinced at all of this technology because I had the same associations with this technology as everybody, speculation, cryptocurrency. That's something that I'm not interested in, finance and all that stuff, because I didn't know the technology. I didn't know what it can do and all that stuff. And then our professor told us, stop, blockchain is not about Bitcoin. It's not a synonym for Bitcoin. And he sent us a lot of articles about the topic, and I was still not interested in it. And then I actually had another topic for my master thesis, and I had to change it because my other supervisor told me that she was pregnant, so we had to change the topic. And then the other professor told me that he would be interested in supervising my thesis, but he would be interested in doing something about blockchain, connected to blockchain. And then I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. But he told me, go and look what you can do with blockchain. Just have a look at all the possibilities and choose a topic that you might be interested in personally. And then my first thought was, okay, what am I interested in? Journalism, because I always wanted to be a journalist after school, but I finally decided not to study journalism because everybody told me it's just difficult to find a job. And today I regret it a little bit, but yeah, that's when I was 18, I decided not to do it. But I always think about that I would be interested in anything that is connected to journalism. And so I just typed into Google blockchain and journalism. And the first thing that I saw was the website of Civil at this time. And then I was like, wow, there is a real case about blockchain and journalism. And then I discovered their website and other literature about the topic. I think still today there's not a lot of literature about it, but it's starting. And then we didn't know how to actually handle the topic. So we said, okay, we have a case here in New York. Blockchain and journalism is something that might be interesting, but we didn't know what to do with that in the master thesis. But then we said, why not write an email to Civil and ask them if they want to participate in a case study. And they then said yes. I sent an email and I had a positive answer. And so I went to New York and I did some interviews with them.
So can you tell me a little bit about the research you did? Like, who did you interview? And I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to read the whole thesis. So who did you interview?
And so I interviewed 4 persons of the Civil team. So with different functions, different roles. And this was quite interesting because I had people more on the technical side, more on the managerial side. So it was really interesting. And how can I describe it? I think they were prepared for this because they told me a lot of things that I've already read before, because they gave other interviews to journalists and everything. And then it was in the beginning, it was difficult a little bit to make them talk about the project more in detail, about the difficulties, the challenges, not only on the, not only talking about the project on a high level, but to go a little bit more in depth. But then they told me some interesting challenges they still had at the time. For example, that because we're always talking about Web 3.0, and actually they told me we're in the Web 2.5 actually, so we're not there yet. So we always tell everybody, oh wow, we are a blockchain platform, but actually it's so difficult to have everything decentralized that we have to integrate options like traditional options on centralized servers, for example, because it's just too slow, this Web 3.0. So this was interesting, for example. And then what I did in the next step is that I interviewed 3 journalists that were working with Civil at this time. So 3 journalists that were from newsrooms that were on their website. I don't know if you know their model a little bit, the Civil model.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with some of the newsrooms, but okay. I know there's lots that I'm sure I don't know about. So
okay.
No.
Yeah, so that, yes, I think there were, in the end, there were 17 newsrooms participating in the project, so quite a lot. And 3 persons were willing to talk to me about their experience, and that was interesting because it was not the same perspective than Civil perspective, of course. They said that they told me that there are other challenges for the journalists that are participating. For example, that it takes a lot of time to get involved in the community, and actually it's like a great vision, this democratic participation, everybody can vote, but actually it takes really a lot of time. So people don't have the time to type a lot of comments and to say, oh, have a look at that. I think here's an error here. It's really a time-consuming thing. So I think in general, democracy is really time-consuming. It's the same for journalism. So it's a big vision, but it's another question: is it really realistic to ask people to get involved, journalists and citizens, and to discuss on a platform? That might be a challenge for future projects, I think.
So who did you interview?
I cannot.
Which newsrooms were involved?
I cannot tell you the newsrooms because it was anonymized. So I cannot. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you the newsrooms because it would be too easy to identify the persons of the newsroom because it's small newsrooms. But it's newsrooms based in the United States. So let me think. All 3 were based in the United States, and I think they had a lot of newsrooms in Spain, Latin America, but I didn't have a chance to talk to these people. So
and so in your view, was Civil a success or a failure, and why?
I think it was a success. I think just because it failed in the end doesn't mean that it wasn't a success, because like they told me, it's an experiment. So we know that it might fail, and I don't know if it was, I don't know what the reason was that it failed last year, maybe the pandemic, I don't know. So I think only having the idea to change something, to think outside the box, think of alternative solutions for journalism, this is already a success for me in my eyes. And the fact that they had like 70 newsrooms on their platform, I think shows that there is an interest all over the world for alternatives for journalism, because we all know that journalism is in crisis and we cannot continue as before. And maybe it will take some time to fully integrate like blockchain technologies in this industry, but I think it's super interesting that they were the pioneers actually in this area. So yes, for me it was a success.
And based on your research, what aspects of blockchain do you think could potentially be most useful to journalism, and which do you think could potentially harm journalism?
So first of all, I think all the aspects can only benefit journalism, but it depends on the way people are willing to use these aspects. I think this is the biggest challenge. So of course, what is really interesting is permanent archiving, that you can archive whole articles or only timestamp ideas of articles on the blockchain. And as you showed in your little video, I think that can add a lot of trust, because people can really check when something had been put on the blockchain, on the internet, when it has been modified, changed by whom. I think this is really, really interesting. And for example, Civil, they had like 2 functions. So you could put the ID of the article on the blockchain and all the modifications, or the whole article. And maybe it's not relevant to put the whole article there, but just to have the timestamps and to see what is being modified. This is already super interesting, and you cannot do that on the internet today. So we all know the famous Wayback Machine. I don't know if you know it, yeah, that I use frequently because websites just aren't available anymore. So yeah, so blockchain, I think, is really interesting in this respect. And then the community function, I think, is interesting too, but this might be the most difficult to implement, because, like I said, it's time consuming. There's the question, how do you moderate these discussions? Who can participate? And what I noted when I watched your video is, you said there will be a community of experts that can discuss and
freezing a little bit,
that are in control of. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Just let me check. Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if you heard what I said. I'm not sure, because in your video you say there will be a community of experts that will be in control of the platform. Is that right?
The way I see it working is you would have sort of like content producers, and then checkers, but also just general experts. So somebody who has like really specialized knowledge in some, obviously with COVID, like people who have like specialized medical knowledge maybe would be like act as like a checker to verify like very technical information.
Okay.
But I don't know that the checkers would necessarily be sort of see more like as there would be like core members of the organization that would be sort of mostly in charge, and then
okay.
Because
the question I had for that is how can I say it? Because in the pandemic, we had this discussion about experts. Is it a good thing to have experts who are talking in the media, for example, all the time? Or do we want to give a voice to people that we don't hear that much? So is it, can it add trustworthiness and credibility to give a voice to experts again? And will people say, okay, another expert, I don't know if I trust this person. So, I don't know if you understand what I wanted to say. So maybe this can be an issue for the community, democracy, participation. Is it really democracy to have a lot of experts?
Well, I guess the way I saw it was it would be more just that anyone could report or challenge fact check.
Okay, anybody can. Okay.
Yeah, so anybody can do that part of it. But then when it comes to verifying claims, it would still just be like editors and sources. But so the way I see it working is like the blockchain aspect would come into not saying whether something is true or not, but whether it's been verified or not, and who verified it and when.
Okay, understand.
So it's not like really like the idea I have is like very small scale. It's like very specific, like yes, no, like and when and who. Like that's it. Like it's not the same as like Civil was very complex. Like I'm looking at something that's very simple.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess the democratic part would be more that, you know, enabling anybody to question things and you know, question claims and like and raise issues.
Okay. Okay, but this is interesting. And I like the functions that you added, that you can just click on what do you think, what is not correct. So because on the civil platform, it was really like a chat actually. So you could write, okay, I see a problem here, and then everybody discussed about it, and was not structured at all, and was difficult to find information in this big chat where everybody put their ideas. So I think this might be a good way to do it. Just yes, no, and click on the cases. Okay. Okay. So, just to answer your questions, I said permanent archiving and the community function. One thing during my research, what I discovered is that the how is it called, smart contracts might be, I don't know, too complicated for journalists to use. And this is something that I realized. And even the DIDs, the decentralized identities that you can have, is interesting. But what I realized during the interviews is that it is maybe too technical. So what people are or journalists are interested in, trust. So what you are doing and all the other technical aspects around might be interesting from a theoretical point of view, but maybe it's not really practical. I don't know. Yeah, because I asked, I did some other interviews here in Quebec with some journalism experts, and they asked me, what are smart contracts? You know, what can I do with that?
So I think originally I was thinking, oh, you know, and for the purpose of this, I'm just like not really going into how it would be monetized. But I guess what I realized is like making it free is, it makes more sense just to make it transactions. So you're paying a micropayment for a fact check. Like that's the simplest way to do it, is that it's a transaction. So is what I realized.
Okay.
And that's the easiest way to sort of determine whether something's important enough to be investigated, is whether someone's willing to pay for someone to check it. So it's kind of like I had like this idea of how it would be completely free, and then like as I did more research, I realized like the simplest way to do it is just
And have you already integrated this function, micropayment function?
No. So there's a couple of different ways it could work. So this is just kind of like, this part of it would just be to say like, this is how it might work. But although I might try to do like one transaction just as like an experiment to go. But I guess if it was like, if it went on, this is just my thesis, is just, this is how it might work. And then if I was to go on later to develop a prototype, that would be like a separate a next like phase.
But it's really, really interesting, super interesting what you are doing. That you are really conceiving something for practice, and not only talking about the theoretical.
And maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not. I'm still not like, it's one of those things where it's like, if it doesn't exist, maybe it's the reason why. Like,
no, I really like the idea.
Like, not enough interest, you know, it's just not something that would work, I don't think.
And what is your impression at the moment? Is there an interest on behalf of the journalists or
I think
editors?
There is an interest, and I do think like obviously the current pandemic might change people's views about communications just in general, like as there's like communication breakdowns and like so I mean, but that's something that I think time will tell. Like it's still sort of
maybe that's what they told me at Civil. Maybe Civil is ahead of its time. That's what they told me, and finally it turned out to be ahead of its time. But because the ideas are great, you know, behind these platforms, but are people willing to engage in these technical processes? This is what I heard a lot in the interviews that I conducted, that as journalists are like really traditional industry. They don't want to, they're always a little bit resistant to technology in general, and then blockchain is like, wow, it's too much. And then micropayments, oh, and cryptocurrency, and I have to set up an account here and there, and and I think it's the same for citizens or for readers.
For sure, like if you look at what's going on now, you know, like all the protests and stuff, like, you know, are these really people that are looking for more scientific data? Like, not really. Like, there's a difference between not, you know, not believing something and just not agreeing with it, right? Like, it's not that people are. I think somebody else I interviewed was mentioning that, you know, that it's really like people aren't really saying like, I don't believe this, or I think this is fake news. But there's, you know, what they're really saying is, I just don't agree with this thing. Confusion sometimes there, where it's just like, you know, people who are protesting curfews and stuff, they're not, you know, going to be necessarily convinced by more news. Like,
no, like that's a big problem.
Protest is not really about that, right? Like,
so.
But
my impression is that we have reached like almost a dead end in this discussion about truth and trust in the media and information and facts and fake news. And because it's so, you have, you know, it's polarized. You have people who say, oh, there are facts out there that we just have to find, there is one truth. And then there are other people who are saying, no, like you said, I believe what I want to believe. And I don't know, it's the same with conspiracy theories. You know, you cannot convince somebody with facts in this case. It's so emotional. And I think this is a big problem. And are these people that are already against the media and against the elite and everything, are they willing to have a look on web pages like yours and go and check out, okay, this is something that has been fact checked by somebody? I think it will be the people who are already interested in good information, and you know, I think that might be the problem, that the people that you want to reach with that, you cannot reach them because they are all already, they have no trust in media, and so they no trust in the experts.
So just to ask you some questions now, just about in general trust in media. So why should the public trust the media?
Oh wow, this is a good question. I think in society we have to agree on facts. I don't like the word facts, but maybe on information, on data, because if we don't agree on something, we cannot have a debate. And I think the media are a good channel to provide this kind of information, this kind of data, to have a public debate on a shared pool of data. Actually, I think this is really the reason why we should trust the media. How can I say? It's really a good question. You could write a thesis only about this question. I don't know what to say, actually.
Well, that's a great answer. And do you think that lack of public trust in the media is as big a problem as it's sometimes made out to be? Like, is there a crisis? Is it overblown? What are your views on that?
I think it's a big problem, but I think it's the wrong approach to always say, oh, these people are stupid, they're just looking on their phones, they should read quality media. This is not the right approach. This is just polarizing even more the society. I think we should understand these people, and I can understand them partially when they say, I don't trust certain media because they're, I'm from Germany, and there are a lot of media, quality media in Germany. You cannot go there as a journalist when you're not student from a big school of journalism that has a big reputation, or you have rich parents, you know. And I understand people that are not in these classes who say, okay, why should I trust the rich or the people who are better off? So I understand them. I think it's really important to show an interest in these people, in their problems, and not to say, oh wow, yeah, you're just too stupid to understand what the good and quality media are telling us. Yeah.
And what about more like serious forms of media manipulation and like disinformation, like foreign attacks? What are your views on that? How do you think that might be addressed?
I think, I don't know if there are a lot. I don't think that there are a lot of problems in for example in Canada. I don't think that they are really manipulating information, but like I said, if you only have a homogeneous group of people who are working on an issue, of course you only have a certain perspective on the world. And I think in the Western media in general, we have a kind of homogeneous perspective on things. Like, for example, Russia is bad, China is bad. This is not objective. And we unconsciously, we believe that. And we don't question that. And I think this is the real problem. I think that, you know, manipulations are not the problem. I think the problem is that we have a too one-sided perspective on things. Yeah. And for example, I read a lot of different newspapers. So I try to read Canadian newspapers, French newspapers, US newspapers, German newspapers, but actually they all have the same perspective. They vary a little bit in this perspective, but they are not providing a completely different point of view. You know, I think this is the problem. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest discrepancy between the media's opinion of themselves and the public's opinion of the media? Or the way journalists view themselves and the way the public views journalists? Yeah,
I think, okay, it depends. If we really look at the media, of the big media, for example, Canada or elsewhere, I think that the media or the journalists that are working there are aware of the fact that they have access to information that the public does not have. Okay, I just lost you. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I can hear you fine. It's fine.
Okay, you just freezed. Okay, so it was just okay, what it is? Okay, they are aware of the fact that they have access to information that the public does not have, and that they can frame this information in a way that they want to frame it. I think they are aware of their power and of their power to frame the public opinion. And the public, actually, I think this is, and the public is maybe thinking that, like you said, they are manipulating information. They're only selecting specific information that might reflect the opinion of the government, for example, in the pandemic. I think this is this might be something extreme, but I think this is might be the difference, that the public is thinking media are manipulating things, and the media or the journalists are thinking, oh, we have the information and we can decide how to present it. Maybe they don't manipulate it, but they present it in a certain way.
Okay, what do you think the media landscape will look like in 20 years? What do you think is the best case scenario?
The best case?
Yeah.
Okay, because I wanted to start with the worst case.
Why do you think so?
Because I have a worst case scenario. I think.
Okay, then what's the worst case scenario?
I think that we will have even more big players, consolidated landscape. Only, I don't know, we already have only 2 or 3 big companies that have the power over the market. And I think that it will become worse in the next few years. And we see it with the pandemic. There were a lot of problems. Especially the small media had a lot of financial problems, and I think it will get worse. Independent media that are dependent of financial support from outside, I think they will struggle a lot more, and I think that will influence negatively the trust by the public, I think. So I'm sorry for the worst case scenario. The best case scenario would be that maybe that especially the small news rooms and the independent news outlets, they are able to invest in technologies like blockchain, and that they develop these alternatives. Because I think that if the big media take control over blockchain, then we have like centralized platforms again, and I think this is just would be the same as today, just with another technology. And I think like Civil did, it was a startup, and the newsrooms that participated in Civil were all small news outlets with a big vision. Only, there are newsrooms only with one person, and I'm like, wow, you have a vision, you are motivated to do good journalism, to look at technological alternatives. And I think these newsrooms, if they have the financial capabilities to invest in blockchain or other technologies and develop new ideas, I think that would be a best case. And of course, the big players, they will stay on the market, but maybe we can really create a counterbalance to these big players.
And so what do you think, what do you think is the solution? Like, how might small independent news organizations be better supported or be encouraged to?
This is a good question, because if I say they should ask money from, I don't know, rich people, then we have the same problem as I told you at the beginning. Rich people have enough power to decide what is going to be reported. So yeah, that might not be the solution. But if we can convince people citizens to invest maybe small amounts of money in these news outlets, that would already be great. So this is maybe difficult depending on your personal situation, but if, for example, micropayments, if it would work, then you're not obliged to pay like $50 a month for a subscription, but you can just I don't know, give $1 here and $1 there. But first of all, to be able to convince people to give money to this the small news outlets, they have to know about these news outlets, because there are a lot of small news outlets, but who knows them? Only the big fans, or because maybe someone from your network. Maybe first of all, they should work on their image. I don't know. I have no solution how to do that, but maybe I would say, raise their or improve their image on the social media. But even there, then we are again in this space of the big players. So this is, like I said, it's kind of a dead end, because we have these big players that are just in control of everything.
So what do you think is the biggest threat to journalism or press freedom in terms of technology?
The biggest threat, I think the threat is inside the media. So I think the threat is not technology. So we could have a debate about, is technology something that shapes people, or people shape technologies? But I think that the threat are not the technologies, but what you do with that. And if the journalists, if they ignore the positive possibilities of, for example, blockchain, I think this is the threat. I'm not saying that every newsroom should implement blockchain on their platform. This is maybe not realistic, but just to check out the possibilities, technological possibilities, to understand what can this technology do for me, and just maybe experiment with it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you have tried to use it. I think the threat is really to ignore the technological possibilities. Yeah.
So you were mentioning before how it's just like the Western world has one homogenized kind of perspective of news. How do you think more diverse perspectives might be included?
Again, I think it's up to the small media outlets, because there are a lot of small newsrooms that already have I don't know, like a specific interest in one area, and maybe the resources or the people that are interested, that are willing to invest time and money in a specific issue. I think it's there. I don't think that the big media can do that. Actually, they are already trying to, I don't know, talk more about women or issues of, I don't know, minorities, but you cannot cover diversity topics with a homogeneous workforce. That's again what I said. So I think or independent journalists even, so it maybe not only small news outlets, but independent journalists, freelancers, maybe have interested in specific topics. Maybe they have the network also to cover these diversity issues, because you cannot cover something about an ethnic minority from top down. You cannot say, okay, I'm sitting in my office of media XYZ, and I'm writing an article about this minority. And you have to know the people, and I think it's only individual journalists and small news outlets that might have this access, this interest in investigating these topics. I think maybe this is I don't know, not realistic, but I would love to see that. That. And maybe just one thing, I was really surprised during my research how journalists seem to be resistant to technological change. And when I looked in the literature, I found the same thing. So even before blockchain or artificial intelligence, it seems like journalists in general, they don't like new technologies, because maybe they are afraid that technologies will replace their work, or I don't know. And then of course you have the opposite. You have the tech guys that tell you, wow, you have to use blockchain, you have to use artificial intelligence, it will change your life. And this is not the truth. The truth is not that it will replace your job, but it's not true that it can do everything. So maybe just if we can find a balance between the two, maybe a dialogue between the two. I know that newsrooms are already working with IT people and journalists, but I think the dialogue will maybe help to to just discuss more about the nuances, the challenges and the opportunities, and not only to look on one side of things. Because the blockchain discourse, not in journalism, but in general, is really, it's too positive, it's too capitalistic, or almost, in my eyes, it's like, okay, buy some Bitcoin and speculate a little bit with that, and you should use this blockchain. And I don't know. I don't like I don't like this discourse about the technology, because it seems to forget the real opportunities, the real possibilities, the promises, and it only looks at how can we do even more money and make more money. And I don't know if that's clear, but Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess like, I mean, journalism is, well, or I mean, I agree with this too, that it should always be like as core talking to people in person, which doesn't involve technology on like, and outside of like recording that, it doesn't really involve technology at all.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe that's why I don't like, it's like,
I wrote one article for a small news outlet, and it was like so time consuming on one specific topic, just to find good information and to write a text that makes sense. And this is really, this is just so capitalistic today, the journalism landscape. If I hear, you know, a journalist has to write, I don't know, 20 articles in 1 week, this cannot be quality journalism. How can you write so many articles in 1 week or in some days? You cannot go in detail, in depth into the topic. And yeah, and when you look at, for example, good example is when Civil announced its end last year. I did a small research on the internet about this news and why, and what was the reason for this decision. And I realized, so like 3 to 5 days after this announcement, all the articles basically had the same text, the same paragraphs. You know, this already the texts were like, they had 3 paragraphs. And they said, okay, Civil announced, The second paragraph maybe was a citation of Civil. And the third paragraph was just copy pasted from another website. So I was like, okay, this is not journalism. If we copy paste everything, yeah.
PR, yeah.
And it's not in depth. It's just too short. Not all the articles, but a lot of articles are so short. They come from agencies and not from the journalists. So I think this is, it's maybe too oriented towards profit. I understand that they are under pressure, of course, the media, even the big players. So I think this is a big problem for quality journalism, this run for money and
is there anything else you would like to add about?
I think that's something that I wanted to add. That I think it's too capitalistic, and I'm reading a book about artificial intelligence in journalism. I forgot the name. What is it? I don't know, but it's about artificial intelligence journalism, and I was excited to read it, but actually I'm so frustrated because it's only about how artificial intelligence can make you write articles even faster and more efficient. I'm like, okay, no, even more faster and more efficient, you know, it's not possible. And it's like, okay, I think this is not the right direction. Technology should not be used in journalism to speed up the process even more. I think this is maybe something that is really a threat that I could add.
That is one of the things I see as blockchain potentially being helpful, is that like slowing things down actually. And keeping humans in the process.
That's right. Maybe that's maybe also a challenge to balance, you know, the technological and the human aspect, to have both.
It is challenging. I don't know, like I've never really seen, I mean, I haven't done any research on this, but like, is there any basis, like is there any research that says that, you know, consumers want more information? That's something you hear, like usually like, no, I want less.
No.
I've never heard that, you know.
That's right.
That what audiences want is more like.
I think they don't want more information, but more short headlines and fast, you know. So I want to look at my phone and I want in 5 minutes, I want to be up to date. I think this is the issue, because people don't have time to read long articles, and I'm not excluding myself from that. I'm every morning I open some news websites, but I'm not reading a lot of articles in depth, because it's so time consuming, and it's so sad, because I would like to, but we don't have the time to do that all the time, and finally we only read the headlines, and
yeah.
So like I can just repeat, I think we're in a dead end. I don't know how we can just find a solution for everyone, but I think there is a serious problem with trust in the media. I don't know, what do you think about that? If you think it's really a problem, or it has always been there.
I mean, I think it's always been there, but that's like that's the danger. Like there's always this balance between, like, without that trust, then that's usually a sign that things are sliding into like serious like catastrophic problems. So like it's always it's like a thermometer or something that's like, I mean, it's there's like, if it goes above that
okay, this is interesting,
whatever that tipping point, then, and that's like it's there's like a tipping point that it goes past where it can't really, something terrible is going to happen before that trust can be restored. Like
that's interesting. The metaphor with the temperature, that there's a tipping point.
But, like global warming or whatever, like kind of like the same sort of thing. There's like that like
that's right, but I think it's everything is connected, together. For example, we talk about trust in the media, but I think there's a lot of different aspects related to that, trust in politics, trust in the economy, in big companies,
like social institutions in general, I guess.
A lot of social problems, and maybe that the loss of trust in the media is only a sign for a different problem. Maybe the problem is, people hate to be governed by elitist groups who don't know the interests, the problems of the small people. And I think this is just a sign of the bigger problem that we might not solve, unfortunately, with blockchain. But I
get bigger and bigger again, like as humans get better and better at like identifying problems, but I don't know if we've like gotten any better at like finding solutions.
That's good. That's right.
Hopefully.
So and I think the pandemic has only reinforced the problems. I think the problems they were there before, and now we are seeing them, and this is quite I don't know, dangerous, and I'm a little bit not hopeless, but there's something going on, and we should do something about it. Big philosophical discussion now. But
do you have any more thoughts about what might be done? Like any more?
I'm thinking about
to restore that trust, or
restore the trust. I'm just thinking of one person that I cited in my thesis, who said that there's one part of the trust that has been lost forever. There's one part that you cannot restore, maybe just one small part that can be restored or worked on. And I think that reflects very well the situation, maybe. And like you said, trust cannot be restored in by telling people, okay, go read the newspaper, the trust is out there, or the truth is out there. That might not be the right way. Maybe it's just more in the dialogue between different groups of people from different classes that might help really to have a dialogue and not to say, okay, just read this article, read this research, and you will understand. But because I think people feel a little bit alone, all these people that are demonstrating against the pandemic, the measures and everything, I think they are feeling like, okay, there's somebody sitting there and deciding on my life. And if actually we are in a democracy, and there was not a lot of discussion and debate in the last year. There were some people deciding for all the others. And of course, this is causing stress and problems and social problems. So maybe dialogue would help a lot. Better dialogue. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm sorry, maybe this is really out of the scope of the topic, but I think it's really it's connected to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, any thoughts on how to, like, journalists might help facilitate that dialogue, or is that just not something that
I think that
is it completely outside the scope, like that's the realm of democracy, better democratic systems or something?
There are already a lot of newsrooms that are facilitating or, for example, organizing I don't know, discussion evenings where you can discuss about a topic with different people, with experts, where they invite persons, experts from a specific field, and then you can discuss with them, ask questions. And I think this is maybe interesting. So to see journalism not only as, okay, I'm sitting in my office, I'm doing one interview and I'm writing an article about that, but maybe just really to go out, facilitate settings where you can discuss with different people. Maybe this is already also the task of journalism, not only to write articles or to do podcasts, but to organize events like that where people can come
live
together.
Events.
For example, I think that is interesting. Here again, the problem is that these events are often not visible for the people, for all people that could possibly attend them, because for example, on Facebook, when the algorithm only shows you what you're interested in, so only people who are already interested in these topics or already participating in different live events will see the invitation for the event, and others will be excluded. So again, that might be difficult, but I think that would be maybe one option to expand a little bit the scope of journalism, to redefine it. And I think they're already doing it a lot. That you can just post your questions or your ideas on a specific topic, or you can send an email to the journalist that wrote the article, just to have a dialogue. I think this is really important, to break down the barriers between the journalists in the ivory tower and the mass that is being informed by the people in the ivory tower.